Yes, people. Yes, people. Yes, people. Welcome, everyone, to the Cut Down Podcast Show. I'm your host, Ben from Lover of Tech, and it's already episode 2. I know. I said at least every 2 weeks I'll be doing this. No less than a month, just to set my expectations, just to kind of get used to the podcasting life, because it's a different venture, but it's been a week and I already got another episode for you. And on top of another episode, you are still not experiencing me just by myself. I've got another guest in person, not virtual. We ain't going virtual here. We're still in person. Another guest, a great friend of mine, a great colleague in the industry when it comes to consumer electronics and tech. And as the cut down goes, like I always say, if you want a straight and more cut down version of tech news where we can just come have a conversation, structured but not scripted, where we have a bit of fun and have a chat and really touch base and catch up, then this is the podcast episode for you. So definitely, man, I've been able to get it available on all your favorite audio podcast listening platforms: Spotify, Anchor, Apple, Google, you name it, it's there. So definitely search up the Cut Down Podcast Show, all as separate words. Like, subscribe, turn on notifications so you don't miss any future audio sessions on this, as well as obviously on YouTube. The Cut Down channel, man, we've got the video version of this as well, so our video watchers can see us getting all giddy in person, in camera. But as special guest goes, George is a definite good friend of mine. But I will just let him do the introduction so I don't get him ahead of myself. I'm gonna pass it over to him so he can pretty much introduce you all and say hi.
Hello, I am George from little-known YouTube channel Snappy Tech. You might know me as that crazy man who bought a computer from a budget supermarket. I was like, who's a good company to buy a computer from? Oh, I know, Aldi. But yeah, Snappy Tech, we make videos about technology.
That's it.
I don't know why I did an accent. Oh God, this is the fun. We're gonna have this for
is the fun.
It's gonna stop being funny about 2 minutes into this. Just know that now. But yeah, videos about tech, basically tech that I like to talk about. So it can be things like phones. I've started doing, and I'd love to. We can talk about this first.
Yeah, definitely.
I've started doing TikToks.
Really?
Yeah.
I've tried. I need to crack it. Like, short form is not me in general, but it is the trend that seems to be staying by the looks of it.
Because here's the weird thing. Sometimes I want to make a video, but I don't want to make a video.
Yeah.
You know? And TikTok is incredible for that as a platform.
Okay.
Where I can make I mean, obviously you still have to use the devices.
Yeah. No, of course,
but I did a Pixel 4a review for TikTok, where like the filming process and editing process took like 5-10 minutes. It was me just like pointing my note at the phone and being like, and this is the color, and this is the screen.
Yeah.
And so the process of like making videos is way quicker.
Yeah.
Marcus Brownlee kind of talked about this when he did his, what video was it? I forget what video it was, but he made a TikTok which has more views than any YouTube video he's ever made.
He's ever made.
It was the LG Wing. That's what it was.
Yes, it was the Wing. What a device. Yes, I remember. He did say. Yeah, I remember the Wing. It was the Wing. Yeah.
And so if you can crack it, I think it's great.
Yeah.
But also, it's TikTok.
Yeah. So, TikTok, you don't stop.
I don't think, and on like a serious note, I don't think people recognize just how good we have it with YouTube.
Oh yeah.
From a monetization point of view, it's we're in an incredible position that YouTube hands you, and even that, frankly, isn't quite enough. Like the level of channel you need to become self-sustaining is quite high.
Just purely on AdSense.
Yeah,
purely on AdSense is insane.
And even then, it's like ridiculously good. Whereas on TikTok, because the way that TikTok works is you don't get the revenue from the ads. You get zero ad revenue.
You get zero ad revenue.
It's all based on their creator fund.
Yeah.
Which has, I believe, they pledged for, I think it was like $3 billion over 3 years. So basically like $1 billion a year, which sounds like a lot of money. until you realize that like that means if you make a video that gets like 150 million views, then you're only eligible for like 10 cents.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It's exactly that. And for a platform that is based on user generated content that really spreads wild in terms of like, wildfire kind of spread in terms of how the algorithm works and whatnot, it's not that much.
Yeah.
And I think it's only now where a lot of us that complained wholeheartedly about AdSense complain half-heartedly about it now.
Yeah.
To the point where we're actually seeing that for the colossal nature of how Google hosts the length and quantity and quality of video that we still complain about when it comes to compression, in retrospect, they've got it nailed down almost to a T. Now, this does not mean we don't critique them and we let them take passes and we don't keep hammering at them to not just sustain and maintain it, but keep getting better. But I think a lot of people are having a much greater appreciation of YouTube's, creative fund in terms of how you as a creative, make money on YouTube, and then also implementing like services like YouTube Premium, where if the audience really does watch a lot of, like, I have YouTube Premium because out of all the user platforms that I watch in terms of streaming video wise, right, that's the one I consume the most, just because it is user generated content. So I get the most viewership from there, and the versatility. It could be something like Flossie Carter doing a 2-hour video on a smartphone review with Xerxes White Shoes coming in, or it could be someone doing a cinematic short take on a smartphone review, or cinematic short take, or someone like myself where I kind of have an in-between of, I like long form, I like a feel of a cinematic look-ish, but really I like it to be straight to the point, informative, no fluff. And also for yourself as well, where from podcasting to, doing content on the go or in studio, just the stretch variety of what you get and just being able to like, monetize from it, how YouTube does. Yeah.
And I think people don't appreciate how YouTube, you can throw anything you want at YouTube.
Yeah.
As long as it's technically a video file, they'll deal with it.
Yeah.
It can be anything from, like a 5-second short to like a 12-hour live stream. Yeah. And they just kind of figure it out.
Yeah.
And that's a privilege at the end of the day. That's not something that people realize.
With no hosting fees.
Yeah, with completely free. And what's crazy is if you're a larger channel, you might go, well, for me, I'd pay the hosting fees, and some people do. Some people use Vimeo as like a backup, because the great thing about
there's been a lot of controversy with what's been happening recently with Vimeo.
But like in theory, Vimeo lets you have relatively uncompressed video that you can upload.
Yeah, and I think they support like 10-bit videos.
Yeah, and because you're paying for the hosting, because you pay for hosting, you can decide whether or not your videos have ads on them completely. Whereas YouTube, even if you're not in the like creator, what's the word I'm looking for?
Like create the YouTube partner program.
Yeah, if you're not in the partner program, you might still get ads on your videos.
Yeah.
Even though you won't get any money on them, the ads still run. Whereas Vimeo lets you decide point blank, like you can just be like, no, I don't want anyone to ever see an ad on my video, and they won't. So I think people have just now realized that, like, I can upload a 4-hour video to YouTube that no one will ever watch just because I want it on my YouTube channel and put it on
in 8K as well. It supports 8K and HDR.
HDR with, I could upload a 4-hour long 8K HDR video private, so no one could. I could upload it and no one would ever see it, and it would still be completely free.
Yep,
and that's ridiculous.
And on top of that, in terms of like, I'm for a while now, I've just been a fan of like, just live streaming in general, and YouTube still are the only ones that really allow you to live stream at 4K 60 frames a second. And I think they've even added a feature to, not that I'm a fan of HDR, because I just feel like HDR as a format is still too fragmented for me.
Yeah.
From just the support, what it has, and then the workflow of it. It's just way too fragmented. But it's just the principle of the fact that YouTube has that as a platform. They are very, very strong and stable. And if you look at if you think about the breadth it's still a very user generated based content platform, you know, but they've struck a little bit in there where you've got the YouTube originals.
Yeah.
And then obviously you've got your Saturday Night Live shows with Jimmy and all these guys that, you know, are a little bit more official, but you've even seen like your traditional broadcast media utilizing YouTube a lot more.
Yeah.
Because they're realizing that the reach is unmatched in that sense. So, and even with just the scalability of how they've been able to add shorts in there, it shows that they've got that kind of infrastructure to do those things. So as a platform, YouTube, yes, we give you a lot of hard time. You kind of ruined YouTube Rewind. YouTube Rewind is gone and so many different other things. But generally speaking, like just even with how much traction TikTok has gained, you've then realized that, right, they still do have a long way to go to figure out the effort that goes into it, even for short-based form content, for creators to really get what they feel like it's worth their time and money, you know. So TikTok is interesting. I mean, I'm in a weird place with TikTok. Not that I have anything against short form content, but my attention span is long, and I'm the type of person that because I'm very chatty. I feel like if you don't give me the time, I feel too boxed in.
Yeah.
So it feels very boxed in, but at the same time, because I generate so much long form content month for month, I've hit a limit where it's like there's almost no time. As quick as it is to make short form content, it almost feels like I have no more space in my head.
Yeah, you just hit your capacity.
I've just hit my limit. But at the same time, I really want to do it. And here's another thing. One of my close friends in the gaming scene and tech scene, King J. Hopefully, I'll get him on the podcast. Jay, you know, it's your turn soon. There's this service called CrossClip that seems to be able to do that for you. It's like a AI based system that just edits your clips from different platforms like Twitch, Facebook, YouTube. And I've yet to try it out, but it looks very convincing. And I think the AI just figures out the best montage or highlight reel and just spits out a video in short form vertical for you. I'm like, that's me.
Yeah, and it's even available in like smaller ways, like Premiere Pro now lets you auto reframe video.
Yeah, the auto reframe.
And it's just those little things where you don't have to go in and sort of spend forever perfectly, because especially if you're doing a video that has like multiple cuts in it, right?
Yeah.
You have to go in, and every time there's a cut, you have to reframe the shot. And, you know, like that's fine, but it's time consuming.
Very.
And so having auto reframe in there is something that seems like quite a small deal, but actually can make a massive difference.
Massive. Like, I always say this, right? I'm going to put it out there. People that actually love editing, even when it's difficult, I have a newfound respect for you. I have a genuine newfound respect for you, honestly, because the problem I find for me is that I find myself editing in situations where my energy's gone. So I have to go into overdrive mode. Like I have to, because for our situation, for example, we test tech products and services, more products with services, you know, give or take what the situation is. You know, it could be a software-based service, VPN, whatever it is, but we test hard. And understanding the nuance of these products is important. The good, the bad, the ugly. And that takes time. That's actually work in itself.
Yeah.
I always say to people, like, actually using a product for enjoyment and testing a product for work, your mindset shifts completely different. You see, and it's actually your working brain is working, you know. So there's that to account for. Then there's the note-taking or scripting, whether it's full word for word, partial, or off-head, because it's just in there. That's still getting the information out there. Once you've recorded it, like, you've then got to do the product shots, you know, whether indoors or outdoor. That's another skill in time and labor, you know. Fun or not, which obviously the creation process is, it's still work. But when you get to editing, for me, I'm cooked.
Yeah.
I'm completely cooked. And Lord knows that's when your system wants to fight with you. Unnecessary crashes, weird stutters. Like, I just feel like for me, at that point is when I get the most friction working against me compared to any other part of the creative stage process. Editing gives me the most friction, and it's like, ugh.
Yeah, because it's in a weird way. Even though we're doing these videos on tech, like in our case, we're doing videos on technology. Editing is almost the point where you're most reliant on it.
Yeah,
because
hell yeah.
Because kind of, if you're making a video about a phone and the phone like kills itself, then you're like, well, the phone killed itself. Like that's content in itself.
It's in itself, yeah.
Whereas if you're trying to edit in Premiere Pro and Premiere Pro kills itself, which it does all the time.
All the time. That's actually a special USP.
Yeah. Then in that case, you're dumb out of luck.
You're done.
Like, it's great. I was talking to a friend about this who was like, George, why is Premiere Pro so bad?
So bad.
Not even Premiere Pro in general, just like Adobe products overall. The Creative Cloud Suite as a whole is just like a bit weird.
It's archaic. It's built on, and it must be built on a very, very old building blocks and framework. It's just bad.
The reality is that there are two major questions. There are two major potential answers to this. Answer one is Adobe are playing a game for fun of like, how bad can we make our product before people stop paying for it?
Yeah.
Which, because of how ingrained in the industry they are, I would argue the answer to that question is, as long as it technically turns on, people will still use it.
It's not good. Like I don't want to crap on Adobe, and here's why I say I don't want to crap on Adobe. Yeah, because funny enough, they are an industry standard non-linear editing system or suite or creative suite that works on the popular platforms, i.e. Windows and also Mac OS. Fine, right? Collaborative tools are fine. Dynamic Link is amazing in terms of how it would work with the other Adobe apps like, Audition. If you remix a track and make it longer, you can just import it straight into your Premiere timeline. Works. You can open an After Effects program in Premiere Pro and it works. I do that all the time. A lot of the work assets for Sound Mobile are After Effects based. So, the overlays and stuff. So I kind of have to use it. So it's not to say that there isn't kind of like an ecosystem benefit to it. And we all know Photoshop is the industry standard graphic designer based software. There are other ones as well. But when you think of any funny edits online that you see, someone always says, oh, you Photoshopped it. Or there's a meme that was going to say, haters are going to say it's Photoshopped.
Yeah.
You see, but Photoshopped is not a thing. It's actually the software name and brand. So it already shows how ingrained it is, right? But the frustration is you are paying monthly for this.
And it's expensive.
You don't own it. And it's expensive. And for it to be that poorly optimized when you have companies like, Blackmagic making a software like Resolve, which is becoming near enough basically industry standard when it comes to an NLE, but especially when it comes to coloring, works on both Apple in terms of Mac OS and Windows.
And Linux.
And Linux as well. And it's so well optimized. Any person that's starting content creation, if you're hearing this and you're thinking of starting video editing in any way, I would highly recommend you use Davinci Resolve. There's a good free version. And when you pay for it, it's a one-time software and you own it.
And if you are paying for Davinci Resolve, the studio version is such that the thing you're paying for, you're already getting paid. Like if you buy Premiere Pro, you could still just be making videos but for yourself, but paying for Premiere Pro. Whereas if you're making videos for yourself, Davinci Resolve is way more than good enough. And the only reason you're paying for Davinci Resolve is for like their team project features, or the fact that it lets you do like 8K HDR output. Like no one is making 8K HDR content for themselves, right? This is the kind of stuff that I believe off the top of my head, it's £300.
Yeah.
It's in that ballpark.
Regardless, it's my point is it's a one-time paid.
Yeah.
And you own it.
Yeah.
And on top of owning it, you not only own it for life, you are getting some of the most well-optimized, stable editing experience. And I feel, it sounds like it's as an excuse, but I feel like I'm stuck in this bubble where I can't condition my mind to give myself time to learn it. I keep telling myself that it's going to take too long to learn. It's going to slow down. And it annoys me because I feel like I'm trapped in Premiere Pro. I know it's slightly tangent, people, but this is where we catch up and just have the chat, right? Where I'm there just thinking it's near enough criminal to be this poorly optimized in terms of at least stability.
Yeah. Because that's the question. How bad does Premiere Pro get before you leave?
Bruv.
Right?
I'm at that limit now. Genuinely, I'm at that point right now where if I think it sounds weird, but when I do go Canada for 3 weeks, I'm not going for work purposes, right? I'm going to try and stack stuff ahead, but I know there will be some stuff that comes through. I'm going to use that time because by then I would have got my 14-inch MacBook Pro, you know. I will use that time to learn how to use Davinci Resolve. Kid you not, because and the thing is, it's not that I'll fully give up on Premiere Pro because, again, the work assets for Sam Mobile, there's a lot of After Effects files in there that have to be used and interlinked. And I don't know how that would communicate well with Davinci Resolve in whatever sense, because that's the ecosystem benefit with Dynamic Link. Great, you know, and Bridge and whatnot. But for my videos, hell yeah, I'm ready. I'm ready for that peace of mind. I'm ready for that peace of mind. And it's just more of an advice to anyone thinking of doing video content creation, right? Do not learn Premiere Pro unless you have to. Yeah. Learn DaVinci Resolve. It works on both Mac and Windows. There's a solid free version that you probably won't not need to upgrade for a very, very long time. And even when you decide to upgrade to the paid version, it's paid one time. You will get lifetime updates and it's yours for life. No monthly subscription. There is a big. And from what I remember, DaVinci Resolve has some great denoising built in. Color grading is top notch.
But tracking is really good.
Tracking, I recently saw someone do a tutorial on DaVinci Resolve stabilization tracking and stuff. And I was blown away. I'm thinking, this just feels way too advanced.
Yeah.
You know, and the hardware optimization and acceleration that you get from it, it's leaps ahead. So I think it's time for me to really bite the bullet and do it.
But yeah, I think that's one potential answer, right? Adobe are just making it as bad as they can for the fun of it,
mate.
The second and the more genuine one is, I wonder if this is an issue that is indicative of the tech industry at large. And here's why
break it down.
Here's why I say that. Recently, I was watching some discussion about Evernote. Evernote is an app that lets you take notes.
Yep.
Simple
the
as
one
that.
with the green elephant logo.
Yeah.
If it helps.
Now, the discussion I was watching was sort of people sort of being like, why has Evernote become bad all of a sudden?
Mm-hmm.
You know, like when I first got Evernote, it was whatever Evernote costs. Let's say it's $10. I don't know what it is, but let's say it's $10 a month.
Yeah.
But like I would pay $10 a month and I got my app that let me take notes and that's all I wanted it to do. And it did it really good. Now it's still $10 a month, but they've added all of these features I didn't want. So the app is now bloated and it now runs slower and it no longer does the thing I bought it for.
Yeah.
I almost wonder if what's happening here, and the way this happens is a variety of reasons, right? Because at the end of the day, you have software engineers who leave, right? So someone comes up with an idea and goes, oh my God, this would be a really good thing to add to our software.
Yeah.
So they add it to the software and then they leave. And the person who replaces them doesn't care about that one specific feature. So it kind of gathers dust and ends up becoming bloat.
Yes.
And also part of it is that these companies sort of, when they're small, have to make the best app ever for a specific niche. Mm-hmm. And so Evernote, when it first appeared, was kind of the best app ever for taking notes and precisely nothing else.
I feel you.
And what happens is that's great, but that's not what makes you the money.
Yeah.
It gets you your first round of people in.
Yeah.
And then then someone goes, oh, this is great, but it would also be great if you let me attach pictures to my notes.
Yeah.
So they add that feature in, and then someone else wants another thing.
Yeah.
And what ends up happening is the scope of this product becomes larger and larger, and the companies go, this is great. We have all of these users, right? So we have, let's say, a million people use my app, and I'm paying 150 software developers to make the app, and I'm like, well, instead of having 150 people make a good app, I already have 1 million people who pay for it. So if we have half of those people, if we have 75 people making an okay app, I've halved my production cost because I've only got half the developers, but I've still got the 1 million users. I'm like making money for free. And I almost wonder if that's what's happening as well to some extent.
It must be. I just feel like yes, we are moving to a very subscription-based service world, right? Gaming. We've seen definitively that if we take Xbox, for example, Microsoft, more like they want to be branded themselves as Xbox, right? I bet you any money, if Xbox themselves could get Game Pass on PlayStation, they would be happy to do that, right? We are living in a subscription-based world, and it's getting to that. And the thing is, it does work. Do not get me wrong. It does work. It absolutely does work. I'm not against it. In fact, for how well Microsoft have implemented it, it's for Sony's hand to implement theirs with the PlayStation Plus service with extra and premium. I'm looking forward to it. So a lot of plot holes and critiques in there that I've mentioned already on the cut down with the individual videos and whatnot. I am pro with it, because if you look at the way the Xbox Series X is set up, for example, again, swiftly moving, and this is the transition of how we just have these natural conversations. Quick resume.
Yeah.
You can't do quick resume if you are using disc-based drives to play your game. It just doesn't work, because of licensing and reasons. If you've got one game that you own via disc and you're playing off the disc, and then you want a quick resume to another game that you own on the disc, it won't work. It has to be a digital version of that game installed, and it does it between 3 or 5 games. I can't remember, right? Clutch feature. But that works based on it being a digital download. Microsoft making it easier for it to be a digital download for Game Pass. Yeah. Great. So it works. There is a definite place for that. But the option to own your stuff still needs to be there. And I don't know what Creative Suite version it was. I think it was CS5, CS6, where Adobe transitioned to the subscription service. And I just feel like from then is when things just went downhill, because you are given no option to own that piece of software. And then on top of that, it would be, in people's mind, they would almost forgive it if it was absolutely top tier stable. Yeah. It's not.
And I think a good example of this is actually Microsoft.
Yeah.
With the Office suite, where you can get Office 365 for whatever that costs. Let's say I think it's £190 a year.
Yeah.
That's the number that comes to mind when I think Office. Or you can buy I forget what the most recent version is, but they do a version every few years basically.
Yeah, where you can own it.
Which is like Office 2020. And you just get, you get whatever it is in that moment, sort of freeze framed almost.
Yep.
And it gets polished up a bit more than normal.
Yep.
And you now own Office 2020 forever.
Yep.
If Adobe did that, I imagine there would be a lot of people who would buy Adobe, Premiere Pro 2021 and just kind of live with it. But that's not how Adobe wants to make money. They want, and the best way to see this is actually to look at the pricing for the Creative Cloud apps. Because if you want one app, it's like £15 a month, which is fine. If you want 2 apps, it's £30 a month because it's £15 each. And if you want every app, it's £34 a month. So clearly what they want is for you to just pay for all of it.
And I get that, like I said, because of Dynamic Link and Bridge, I get the ecosystem pull. Because I do that in my workflow all the time with the AE, the After Effects templates and overlays and effects and whatnot. And I remix and extend my tracks a lot, I open up Audition, remix the track, and then just import it. And it's so seamless. So I get that pull. I really do. But it's just a painful place to be in terms of they just need to figure out how to really get the stability done right, because some unreliabilities are out of nowhere. It's just a case of, hey, I guess I need to close and restart it again. That's it.
And I almost
no reason.
And I feel like mobile OSs need this as well. They almost need a year. And the problem is because we're in this cycle, right? Adobe Max happens and they have to show off some incredible features.
Yes, true.
You know, like
the WWDC.
And they have to show off
Google
something,
I/O,
right?
yeah.
What they can't do is turn up to Google I/O and be like, well, this year we don't actually have any new features. It just crashes 20% less.
Yeah.
No one cares about, like, obviously, like, the user cares.
Yeah.
But from a showing off point of view, no one cares.
Like, no one cares.
We almost need a year for all the software companies to go, all right, guys, we're taking 2022 off. There'll be no new features. It's all stability.
I love what you said. What companies off head? I'm gonna ask to see if you, because I have one. What companies off head do you remember that have not recently, but just at any period of time actually said, no, we are not going to release said version of this yearly product or service. We're going to kick back and just, fix stuff and just make it a polished experience. Because every year that you're expecting us to do something, it's suicidal. It's suicidal.
I think Google had that a little bit, obviously not with Android 12, but with Android 11, it was that to an extent. But even that had some features.
Yeah, it did.
And I think from a Pixel OS point of view, we kind of discussed this in the Sam Mobile podcast.
Yeah.
Where like stock Android no longer exists. It's dead. It's a myth. However, the AOSP version of Android between 10 and 11 was relatively small in terms of difference. That was a polishing experience. But no one will see the AOSP versions of Android 10 and 11.
I think the only company that really tries to showcase that in any way is Sony, from what I remember.
And even they have a bit of sort of extra stuff on top because of the Xperias have their cinema apps, which are incredible. Let's be real here. No one uses them.
No one uses them.
But they are really cool.
Really, really, really. In terms of just what they're implementing from, obviously, their Alpha Cinema division and stuff. So, yeah, it is impressive. But you're not wrong. You're not wrong. And as of recently, the only company I can remember actually doing that was actually 2K Games with their WWE wrestling games. Weird one. I know we've just transitioned into gaming, but I respect companies that do that. Because they got to a point where the wrestling games was so bad. I mean, oh my goodness. Like really, really bottom barrel top. Like when I was on IGN just watching some reviews and stuff and whatnot, I was surprised how bad the review was. I was like, man, for someone that used to be in wrestling when I was younger, and especially the wrestling games, for wrestling games to be this bad now, like that's not even going to convince me to be on it. 2K sat back and said, yeah, we're not making a 2021 version or 2020 version. We're going to take a year or two out and we're going to make sure we just reground everything. And the version they have out now, although I've not played it, but it's not a perfect game. No game is perfect, but just from the outside in, when you're looking at it visually, wow, it looks photorealistic, not just in terms of look, but just the body movements, ragdolling, body. It looks, even for me, where it's like, it made me feel like I want to play that game. You see? So I just feel like, just touching on it, I wish more companies would be less scared to do that.
And I almost feel like games are the perfect place to do that.
Oh gosh, the yearly ones.
Imagine if instead of like FIFA releasing a new game every year,
FIFA's a criminal one.
There was like a FIFA, and it's not going to be called FIFA as of next year. That's the whole thing. Whatever. But imagine if it was like a FIFA, and then if they really wanted to milk it, they could do it every transfer season. Yeah. Right. So after every transfer, like every transfer window, they release for say £10, they have the brand new team. Yeah. Right. So you have this base game that may even be free. Like, maybe you charge like 20, 30 quid for it. Yeah. And then every 6 months you charge £10 for the DLC. And that means that you can update the engine, the core of it. For multiple years. Because at the end of the day, whatever they do on FIFA 22 will be forgotten by the time FIFA 23 comes out. Like any progress they make.
Everything gets forgotten.
So use that and maybe you have like you say that, well, every 5 years we need to make a new engine.
Yeah.
Or, whatever it is.
Yeah.
So every 5 years you have to buy the game from scratch. Fine,
Yeah.
whatever. But aside from that, having that all as DLC at a lower price, I think would actually, in the long run, make them more money.
Much more
because
money.
you have more goodwill with your users, because they know that, if they spend £30 on this base game, it's going to be supported for years.
Yep.
And the lower price of upgrading those rosters, of getting the latest team in, means that someone might go, you know what, 15 quid, why not?
Yeah. Generally speaking, FIFA's at the top list of just that criminal yearly, release cycle of a game that isn't really improving at all. And I think back in the day, it was one of the hockey games from NHL that actually also put their foot down and said, yeah, guys, we're just not bringing out a model this year. We're not bringing out a game this year because we've not had enough time. It's not any different. And in fact, like, I gave props to them. I was like, yo, that's respect. I rate that. We're gonna update the rosters for the previous or the current one. Like, keep updating, but we're just gonna build it from the ground up. I'm just at the point where the yearly, like what you're saying, the yearly kind of, we have everything. It's something to, it's right now, right? We're in that cycle with WWDC.
Yeah.
Right. Clearly, it's going to be iOS 16, next version of macOS that's going to be of a mountain or whatever I don't know what naming scheme that they've called it on what they're following right now. WatchOS, iPadOS, yada, 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 yada. Great. It's great. Don't get me wrong, but it's just, there's just pressure. There's this extra pressure that you're putting on yourself that you might be compromising on, like what you're saying, the quality and the stability. You see, and you're not wrong when you're saying that the tech industry at large has put so much emphasis and pressure that a phone, let's just say a phone like the Note 21. We didn't get a Note 21 last year. You could say that the S22 Ultra is Note 22 6 months early. Hey, but you know what? I wish certain products would actually wait 18 months and 2 years, right? The releases will feel more special.
Yeah.
They'll feel more polished and, again, more stable. You see, and I just wish, okay, maybe not as lazy as what Apple does with the iPhone SE, right? Because that's a copy and paste job to wait 2 years for. No, but I do wish more companies for their products and services would actually sometimes put their foot down and say, guys, we're just not going to bring out a new phone this year.
And I think the exact opposite of this is the company that has somehow managed to lose goodwill in their consumers quicker than anyone I've ever seen, in OnePlus.
Oh, goodness.
OnePlus, there was a point where they were releasing a phone every like 4 months, it felt like. It felt like every time I turned around, they'd be like, oh yes, it's the OnePlus 9T. And it's like, why? And they're like, because we can. And it's like, okay. Like, they kind of went the extreme the other way, where they were like, anytime there's a chance of the slightest spec bump, we'll just stick it in a phone and call it a new phone.
Yeah.
And like, that's great. Like, as the guy who really loves having the latest and greatest in tech, that's kind of cool, I guess. But even that lost its appeal after 1 year. And you ended up with all of these devices who get practically no support because they're out for such a short amount of time that, if you have a phone that's only available for 6 months, you're just not going to sell as many as if you had that phone available for 2 years. And so you've now got, instead of supporting one device that's been out for 2 years, you're supporting 4 devices that will reach out for 6 months. So fewer people have bought them, which means you've no longer justified releasing updates for the older one, which means that older one is now no longer getting those updates.
My biggest problem with how they did it, and again, me being ex-OnePlus and whatnot, it's always a sore point when it comes to discussing stuff like this, right? Compared to other manufacturers, they may have been doing a similar thing or what looked like the same thing, but they were genuinely at least trying to bring you a different product lineup with at least 1 or 2 core USPs or KSPs that stood out where you could, for marketing reasons, even to your general public, they even understood, oh, I know, like Samsung, I know this Note is different to S. I just know it. I know it's only 6 or 8 months apart or whatever.
Yeah.
But that's not the same product. You can argue there's a lot of similarity, but marketing communication
And sometimes it was just a look thing, right? Like the
Even
notes,
that.
the notes are slightly boxier than the S series,
Exactly.
and it has an S Pen. Like, boom, that's your two KSPs. On the other hand, OnePlus almost leaned into the fact that it was basically the same phone.
That's what cheesed me off.
They stuck a T on the end of the name, so it had the same name, right? And then on top of that, they were like, no, guys, don't worry. It's literally the same phone. We've just put in a newer Snapdragon chip. Like, they almost leaned in too hard into the, like, this is the same phone, but slightly better.
Dude, it went as far as, because obviously the original iPhone 3GS started the S kind of like cycle. But even then, that was a year.
Yeah, even that
was a yearly cycle. And even by the looks of it, it looks like Apple have kind of moved away from it, which good in a way, right? Since the iPhone 11, it's been 11, 12, 13. And if this year goes and it's 14, we can indefinitely say that S is dead.
Yeah.
And original S, when Phil Schiller was on stage, was actually co-signed for speed.
Yeah.
And I remember when the 5T was announced, right? They made a joke about, T comes after S in the alphabet, and one other company classes it as speed. We kind of class it as T for maybe turbo. They kind of made a joke out of it, as in like, it's, turbo being fun and stuff. And I was like, okay, great. But they're doing it every year.
Yeah.
You're doing it every flipping 5-6 months. That doesn't sit well with me. Even me, that I'm like, I like the new thing every time. It's another thing that I had against last year's A52 from Samsung. And I've said it many times, and we've discussed this, right? Out of the gate, the A52, in terms of the chipset that was in there and how they optimized it, was so not good that Samsung knew they needed to bring out the A52s.
Yeah.
That cheesed me off, because I'm thinking, well, hang on a minute. You're just basically telling me the same. Why don't you make that S model, that phone that I have right now? Was it that hard? So it's one of those things where in certain situations, when it's not communicated well, it actually puts you off. To me, I'm like, well, I don't trust having to buy this version if potentially in 3-4 months, top 6 months, that very same phone is going to be a better version.
Yeah.
It's not a different type. It's the same phone better. What?
and Tesla kind of does this in the sense that they don't have like concrete car versions. Like, like Ford will release like a 2012 Mondeo and then the 2015, they have concrete versions. Which is good for a consumer because they can say, okay, well, I know that the next one comes out soon and I'll just wait for it and whatever.
Yeah.
Whereas Tesla, like the Tesla you buy is whatever the latest and greatest Tesla is. Mm-hmm. And sure, they might have like some bigger stuff that they show off, like an updated front spoiler or, whatever. Not front spoiler, like a
yoke steering wheel.
Yeah.
A half steering wheel.
Like the bigger things get their own updates. But generally speaking, the Tesla you buy is the best that Elon Musk can make a Tesla. Because I don't know if you guys know this, he's hand building every Tesla.
Oh my goodness.
But what that means is that like people don't know that. The regular consumer sees the Tesla that was announced, 3 years ago and goes, is this the car I'm buying or is it something different? Mm-hmm. And they just can't tell. And so for us in the tech space, having the T series was a bit annoying.
Oh, very.
But for regular people buying devices, they were like, wait a minute, is this supposed to be the flagship? Like, is this, or is the phone that, like, do I buy this now because it's the flagship, or do I wait like what feels like 2 weeks because the new flagship comes out, and then wait a minute, the new flagship is coming out, and I should just wait for that, and then they just never end up buying anything.
Yeah, and that's what I mean about. It's different to what they have now, where you've got the Nord range, and you've got the. It's genuinely you've communicated in a way where there is a difference. Yeah. Where the normal person or even the techie understands that that's what that one is, and that's what this one is. So even if they've only just been released 3-4 months apart, they are two separate things. Yeah. Get the one you need and you're fine. You don't need to get yourself trapped in that cycle. But that T range and how they were doing it, always confused. Anytime the normal numbered version came out, you knew, do I get this or just wait for the T? Or do I wait for the next numbered version? Yeah. And that is a poor mindset to keep someone trapped in that cycle of I don't know which one to get, because it's not a different product. And this is one thing that it really grinded my gears seeing that. And that kind of, it just like, that's what I mean, that kind of not communicating your product segmentations and release cycle properly can just give the end buyer enough headache that if, let's just say, their contract upgrades at a certain time that just isn't a sweet spot to get it, you might lose them to another brand.
Yeah.
Because that other brand is well communicated in their product segment. You know, like it just made more sense.
And I think that's why Apple dropped VS as well.
Good.
Because honestly, I think 1 year is probably the upper limit.
Yeah,
or the lower limit, sorry, for how frequently you like release stuff.
Yeah.
Because I think 1 year is just long enough that if the iPhone XS has just come out and you're like, well, I need a new phone, but do I wait for the 11? And then you're like, well, it's 10 months. Like that's basically like that's just about long enough where you're like, actually, no, I'll just buy the 10S.
That's true. Yeah.
Whereas if it's 3 months, you might be like, well, 3 months is like, you know, I can live with this for another 3 months.
Yeah.
And it's just too fast.
Yeah. And I mean, just to obviously not necessarily conclude, but it's to really drive away the original point is that I wish more companies, especially in the tech scene, as what we like to talk about, would just be more brave to put their foot down, slow their roll, polish and stabilize.
Yeah.
And then do proper from the ground core upgrades that really, when they bring it out, you know, this is big. This is big. This is actually the one, right? And on top of that, making sure that they communicate their product segmentations properly and not confuse it, you know, and just be brave about it. And then like the software part of it, where we're again transitioning to a subscription-based world. Cool, I get it. Like I'm actually, like I said, I'm actually for it, but I'm never ever gonna be for it to the point where the end user, whether professional consumer, has zero option to own that product in any form.
Yeah.
Like what you said, the best example you gave is Microsoft Office. Microsoft in about 5 years will probably make an upgrade version where at this point we're going to freeze frame everything.
Yep.
Give you that, right? And you are going to hold on to that version. You're going to have it. It's stable. There's not going to be any feature upgrades, but you might get stability upgrades if there's any bugs.
Bug
right?
fixes, security updates, stuff like that.
But features, you want features and you want new features on the fly, 365.
Yeah.
And own that. I'm okay with that. For the ones that it suits where I just want to own it, right? Cool.
And frankly, the people who just want to own it are the people who are willing to pay more as well.
Exactly.
Because it's for businesses.
There you go.
At the end of the day, like, you know, as a business, I don't want the latest and greatest feature in Adobe Creative Cloud.
Yeah.
All I want is to open it and for it to not crash. Because every time it crashes, it's costing me money. You know?
Dude, I cannot tell you how many times I've crashed for no reason, and when I needed it to just be done so I can at least set it to upload so I can sleep, and I'm like, I'm just way too tired to deal with this. I have to sleep. I've lost out on that time of it being already uploaded, getting out that next day to do the SEO, the descriptions, to let it process and all that stuff. It's cost me that time.
Yeah.
Which, if it's, let's just say, sponsored content that is meant to hit a deadline, I'm screwed. I've missed out.
And even if it's not sponsored content, right? Even if it's just something with an embargo.
Yeah.
Hitting that embargo, like, that's a massive deal.
Massive deal.
And like tech companies, no, that's why they abuse embargoes as much. Like, I'll be honest, basically every tech company abuses their ability to give embargoes.
And dual and double ones and triple embargoes.
Yeah, there'll be like the unboxing embargo, and then there's the hands-on embargo, and then there's the software embargo. You know, like companies have realized that actually we can get like 4 waves of coverage out of this if we make an embargo for every little thing. And that's great for them, I guess. But for someone who needs to work to those timelines, you'd think that like losing a couple of hours to Premiere crashing isn't that big a deal. But it is.
It's everything. It is everything. It's the difference maker in so many different things. Especially when you're trying to like line up back to back content effectively. right? There's always this thing where I'm always communicating with certain guys. It's like, well, you don't realize with just being in whatever form of content creation is that the nature of the job, and this is not undermining any other job, it's just the uniqueness of different jobs, right?
Yeah.
Unlike certain jobs where, like, again, I worked in retail, telecoms, sold phones, contracts and whatnot. So that's where I was able to exercise that passion and just transfer it into this. It's a clock in, clock out based job. If I'm not there, the job is going to get done. There's someone else fulfilling it.
Yeah.
It goes, it moves, right? If I'm not there, the job is going to get done regardless. If I'm there, it gets done better, whatever, say it. But for us, no. If it doesn't get done, it doesn't get done. There is no benefit of someone else picking up. It needs to be done.
Yeah.
Right? When you get to that stage of the final edit and whatnot, if it can't be done, it ain't going to be seen. So it makes no difference how much effort you put in before. That part needs to get done. And it's such a crucial point that end user experience it's just something that needs to be done so much that more companies that take time to actually do that. And I'll be honest, coming back to Davinci Resolve, I look at it and I see them not really putting themselves under that type of pressure. And they get more of it right in terms of the software being absolutely stable and just, so more companies need to follow that suit. More companies also need to be brave, like what I gave with the example of NHL and especially 2K with WWE, and just put their hands up and say, guys, we're just not going to. We get it. Like, we've dropped the ball. Or even if they've not dropped the ball, so we're just going to take that bit more time, especially those yearly expected recycle games.
Yeah.
Oh, it needs to be done. It needs to be done. So it's something to consider. I love where the conversation ended up naturally going from TikTok to software in terms of creation, but not just software, but software for like gaming and just what the difference is in terms of also communicating your product segmentation or your service segmentations, whether it's pricing or feature sets or unique USPs. It's such a difference maker that when it's not done right, that's how you just lose interest, And I'm at the point where, yes, Premiere Pro and the Adobe Creative Suite makes me my money. Without it, I wouldn't have gotten so many of the opportunities that I have with my working professional career in this space. So I'm grateful, but I'm not getting any younger. I can't be dealing with throwing even more hardware just to work. That's just not the way. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have to go from, I was already on a 6-core processor. I'm on a 12-core processor. I was on a graphics card that had 4 gigs of VRAM. I'm on a graphics card with 12 gigs of VRAM. I'm still getting the same problem. Oh, so wait, I need to actually go to 24 cores and 24 gigs of VRAM to have a chance of it behaving? Nah, I don't think so. That shouldn't be the way, So Adobe, if you're hearing this, please. I'm not the only one, I promise you. I'm really not. Let's get this fixed up. But anything else from you? Talk to me. Anything else? How have you been in general? Just to pretty much wrap things up. How have you been in general?
I've been good. I've been away and I'm back now.
Yes.
So I'm no longer away.
Yes.
That's how that works.
Yes.
I'm just excited to get back into the I was joking about this earlier, but the hashtag grind set. And
the last few years has kind of slowed that down in a lot of ways.
Yeah. And so I'm just kind of excited to be getting back into making videos as someone who is mostly enjoys the editing. We've kind of had discussions about this.
Big respect for you, man.
Yeah. As someone who loves editing, I've been spending a lot of my time behind the scenes doing editing for other stuff.
Nice.
But I am very excited to get back into the full stack because I enjoy being in front of a camera. It's the reason I do this.
Oh yeah.
It's the reason I do Snappy Tech in the first place.
Yeah.
And so I just want to grab a camera and go out and just film stuff.
Yeah. I agree. That is, as well as obviously, it's so funny you said that, as well as obviously testing the product and services and whatnot. You know, again, that's where the whole lover of tech comes from, because that's what I actually love, right? I have just come to just accept that the most fun part of the creation process is being in front of the camera for me. Like, and just that's why I get to actually talk and express and be more of myself. So I mean, it's something that is definitely good. It's definitely good, and it's nice to see that, especially with the traveling part as well, getting to travel more, and it's interesting. It's interesting with the traveling part. It's I was even saying to you before, like, it's been a shock to my system, not in a bad way, but it's like what was it? Dubai November, CES. I'm happy because for the tech scene, for example, I'm taking off a lot of what I like to call bucket list.
Yeah.
A lot of these events that I saw, especially the three staple in the kind of consumer electronic space, CES, MWC, IFA, they're the ones that from the conception of tech YouTube, I was like inspired by so many people, right? So I'm glad I'm getting to tick them off and do it. But it's a lot. It's a lot. It's a shock. It's like, you know, for someone that wasn't traveling that regularly, you know, it's a shock to the system. And there's certain things where it's like when you're not with the right person or right people around you, as adventurous it is to see different countries and different cultures, you do feel a lot out of your comfort zone, and it actually becomes more than double the work. Yeah. You know, you're thinking about your safety, your equipment, your space, where you are, you know. So it's something that I'm hoping like I'll be able to get to a point where I'm able to link up with more people at these events that can like help with content, do stuff with and whatnot. But no, it's good. It's good. It's good. It's good.
I'm glad.
But yeah, honestly, mate, thank you so much.
It's an absolute pleasure. It's always fun coming on, like just chatting with you.
Do you know what? I'm like, even wrapping it all up, I'm even thinking about it that, like I said before, I've forgotten how just fun, because I used to come on the Snapchat podcast a lot, and I don't know, it's just life happens. Yeah. Sometimes you just think, why has it been so long? You can't pinpoint, oh, you did this to her, so you didn't actually do anything. It's just life happened. And
I've realized that sort of, I've come to the conclusion that growing up is realizing that time speeds up. Because I messaged someone the other day, fully convinced that the last time I spoke to them was like a month ago. And I checked the previous message, and it had been like March of 2020. Yeah. And I was like, oh my God, it's been over like, where did those 2 years go? Like, how on earth have I gone 2 years without speaking to this person? And like, in my head, I'm like, oh yeah, I last spoke to them like a few weeks ago. Like, you know, we'll just catch up whenever. Never you just get so into like whatever's going on at the time. And I also have this issue where I can talk to someone every day. For like a year. Yeah. And the moment I skip a day, they just like fall out of my brain. It's a and I don't know how it happens.
It's a thing to the point where I started thinking about a superpower to have, right? That wasn't so OP, but made sense. And I thought about it. One superpower that always scares me is time manipulation. Yeah. I just think it's just too, right? It's a weird tangent to say this, but I thought about it and I said, what would be a special power that I would love to control, but wouldn't be so compromising and so OP? Yeah. Just being able to stop time. There's some times where I want to sleep 8 hours and a minute's gone. Yeah. And just pause time. There's some situations where I just want to pause time. I don't want to go into the future or go into the past.
Yeah, you just want to be experiencing that moment forever.
For a longer period of time. Yeah. It may not be forever, but it's like I want to, because it's like there's times where as early as I get up and as early as I try and stay ahead, before I know it, I'm like, where's the time gone? Yeah. You know, so because of that reason, anytime I get anyone to just come in person to catch up with, chat, talk spontaneous, and this is exactly what I want to cut down to be. Structured, but unplanned, unscripted, where we just go off the cusp, especially like people in the industry that I know that I've called friends and colleagues that I've not caught up with for no less than 2 years. Yeah. Like, I just want it to just be like, hey, let's just flow with it. Talk whatever, whether it's up-to-date news or just us and whatnot. So I really, really appreciate you coming down. Really, really appreciate you coming down. Let the audience know where and how they can find you.
Yes, so I guess you can find me on YouTube, Snappy Tech.
Oh yeah.
You can also find me on Twitter. It's George_probably.
I love that. I love to switch around to that.
Yeah, it's the same for basically all the social medias. My name is probably George, I guess. It'd be kind of awkward if it wasn't at this point, I guess. I kind of branded myself around that. But yeah, and actually really quickly, the story behind that name goes all the way back to Rocket League.
Really?
Because in Rocket League, when you score a goal, it says your name and then scored.
Okay.
And so I set my name to George Probably because the goal reads George probably scored. And I have a second account that I use when I'm streaming.
Yeah.
That's called George Hasn't because it's George hasn't scored. So yeah, but that one is particularly fun when someone scores an own goal.
Yeah.
But yeah, so George Probably on all the social medias if you want me specifically. If you want the tech geeky stuff, it's Snappy Tech on YouTube and Twitter.
Awesome. Again, episode 2 of the Cut Down podcast show is pretty much knocked out. Thank you to all the audio listeners, and you know exactly where to find it, man. Just pretty much on all your most popular audio and podcast platforms. So definitely give it a rating, drop a review down, and let us know what you would like to see more. For our video listeners as well, definitely, man, subscribe to the Cut Down YouTube channel as well, where you get pretty much your straight to the point cut down on weekly tech news, and also the video version of this podcast as well. Really, really appreciate your support. It's a new venture. Any feedback and anything that you want from us to really improve as I go, more in-person guests, working on the virtual stuff as well, let me know. Again, as I always like to say, especially during this time, be safe, and we'll catch you in the next one. Peace.